Welcome to this panel, which is called Future Funding Models. I think we will have a really great discussion with three participants around how the music industry is changing and how new ways of financing artist careers and releases of music is happening right now and what is going to happen in the coming years. And we have three very knowledgeable participants within the panel. So short about me, I'm a researcher at the Linnaeus University. So half my time I work in the academics and half my time I'm working within the music industry doing analysis for record labels and publishers, etc. And at least I know a little bit Niclas and Linda, of course. And now I get a new person to know, Chris Howard from the Rattle. So actually, I think we could make a short round of presentation. We can start with just a short presentation, and then you have perhaps something you want to show. We can do that as well. But a presentation of who you are, your past, and what you are doing today. Let's start with Niclas.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that you asked me to be part of this. I think it's a hugely important subject that we're going to discuss today, so thanks for that. My name is Niclas Molinder. I am a songwriter and music producer from the beginning. I've been doing that for over 20 years. But at one point, me and my partner, we really needed to grow our company and get more songs done. So we started a publishing company and signed three really talented up-and-coming creators. And I was so naive at the time, so I thought I could run a publishing company at the same time I was working in the studio producing music. But that was when I realized how dark and deep the black hole of metadata is and how complicated the music industry has made it for itself. So therefore, I decided to do something about that and started a company that was named Audley from the beginning, but we're now called Session. And Session is a metadata hub for creators to capture all this important data in the studio when it happens. I'm also the founder of a foundation called Music Rights Awareness Foundation, because during the work with Session, I also realized not only do we need to provide a digital tool for creators where they can capture all the data, we also need to educate creators world over about the importance about metadata and what it actually is. So together with my partners, Max Martin and Björn Ulvaeus, we also started a foundation. And the purpose is to just educate creators world over about rights, so they know exactly what they need to know to be able to protect the music that they create, so their music creation can be a sustainable profession. And we recently also started joint venture with UN and the UN agency WIPO. So together with them, we're now creating a really cool, scalable digital education platform for creators. So that's what I'm doing.
Very interesting, and we will, without doubt, come back to the problems and possibilities with the metadata and what lies ahead, because of course the handling of these huge amounts of data that are produced now is necessary also when it comes to optimizing and making the whole monetization around music much more effective. Okay, so let's go to Chris Howard. You're sitting in, where are you sitting?
I'm in the Rattle, which is in East London at the moment. Okay. One of our small little studios. It's kind of a studio. I don't know how to describe it. We've got like a VR rig there, a LiDAR camera, some stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the co-founder of the Rattle, which was formed in 2018. My past is I started as a music artist in the UK, toured around, played a bunch of shows, supported some big bands, but because I was too ugly, I obviously did not succeed. So I did what most good musicians do when they don't succeed, is I went to MIT in America and did a PhD in physics and psychology. And then found myself through one accident after another, becoming a technology founder. So I built a technology business in 2009 and fell in love with the process of taking an invention from somebody who's just a bit mad and helping them create an incredible company around that invention. So for the last kind of 10 years, I've been either an investor or what's known as a venture builder, helping just crazy inventors and makers of just awesome, essentially start new provocative companies. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I guess we will come back, Chris, or if you can tell us a little bit about the Rattle already now, if you a little bit about the company.
Yes, just trying not to jump ahead. So like the Rattle is essentially is the condensing of mine and my co-founders' experience, really. Core to what the Rattle is a global community. So we have a facility in Los Angeles, a facility in London, but we also have around 300 artists, inventors, and hackers that we help create companies around what they do, and navigate the growth of a company while being really, really amazing makers of something. I will go into a little bit more detail in a little bit.
Yeah, okay, great. Just wanted to have a short presentation of so that's perfect. Thank you, Chris. And then we have Linda. You're probably sitting in Stockholm, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Correct. Great to be here. Good to talk again, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yes, so my background resembles a little bit that of Chris's. I used to play the drums and the synthesizers and write songs with my band, but then I ended up doing a PhD in accounting and finance. So I've been studying the economic development of the music industry for about at least 15 years now. And the creative industries generate over $2 trillion globally in yearly revenue. And just the music industry turnover is estimated to hit over $140 billion in 2030. But in a blockbuster economy, the winner takes it all. And what if there was a more sustainable music future? This quest inspired us to develop Tangy Market, which is an investment and trading app for music. And it provides a new financing solution for music rights owners. We believe that everyone should be able to tap into the exponential growth of this intangible economy. And we believe that music creators should get faster payments, better financial control, true independence, and total artistic freedom. And we also believe it's very important that music is valued higher than it is today. And by inviting anyone to invest in songs and share the profits from the music industry, we make it possible for music to be valued on an open market like any other asset in society. You can think of gold or coffee or a company stock. So yeah, please excuse my humble brag, but we've been up and running for about a month. And we already have users from 25 countries. 80% of all shares were sold out in the first 5 hours. And the song Shoreline by Broder Daniel took only 2 minutes to sell out. So we are also seeing that all assets in the secondary market are increasing in value tremendously. So yeah, I'm super happy to dig deeper into these issues, how we can help creators to better financing terms.
Great. Very interesting, and congrats to the success of the release of the platform.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking of this as making a road, or the roadmap I'm thinking of is we start from the humble beginnings, the artists, or the ones that are actually the creating the core product in the music industry, the artists, the music creators, and we start about talking funding as it is now and what you see happening when it comes to changes in funding, handling metadata, Niclas, around the artist and the songwriter. And then we take next step and talk about financing larger things within the music industry, for example, companies. And then we can take even the big catalog and the whole system. I think we all believe that there's a change happening within the whole economy of the music industry in the coming decades. So, but if we start at the artist and the creator page, and how careers and music is funded today, what are the problems as you see it, as it is now? You can start with Niclas.
So, actually, the problem. What I would like to say there is, I mean, music. When you want to live from your music creation, if you want to become a songwriter, producer, or an artist, you need to earn some money to be able to live from it. I mean, there's also I sometimes call the music with a word that many creators don't like me to call it. I call it a product, because there's something you put to the market because you want people to buy it, and then the music becomes a product. And when you put a product to the market, it's so important that you have control of the whole process, what's going on. In other words, doing business. The problem here that creators, then the most of the times, they start the music creation based on something totally different than business. It starts with passion. They do it because they love music and they love to create music. And what's a bit wrong right now, I think, in the music industry is that the majority of the creators I know, they are more humble and thankful for being able to put the music out there. And if people listen to it, and if you get some money for it, thank you so much. I think that creators need to start thinking more about their business. But if they're going to start talking about their business, they also need to take care of some of the administration around the music creation. Because today, it's some kind of blaming game going on. Everyone blames each other for not doing the right things. And when it comes to the creators, I would say that I often hear from creators that they complain about not getting credited and not getting paid properly. But what then they can do from their own side to change that? There are actually a few things they can do. What I would like to do in this discussion is to not get into how much the different streaming services pay for their licensing, because that's a completely different discussion. And if you want to affect that as a creator, there are other ways to do that. But just to make sure that when your music is used in any type of form you choose to release it in, if you do it the old traditional way with the publisher or the record label, manager, and that package, or if you go the Linda way of putting your music out through a new way of handling rights, or if you choose to do it the so-called DIY way, the do-it-yourself market, which is actually the most growing, fast-growing way of getting your music out. In other words, you do it yourself through a so-called aggregator. Whatever way you choose, there are a few things that you really need to have in mind. That if the people that are going to use your music if they not know who you are and who you've been collaborating with, then they will not be able to credit you and they will not be able to pay you. So I would say that each creator, what they should do from a business perspective from today, if they see this panel, is to start identify yourself. You need to make sure that everyone you work with know who you are and not by your name, because names are not useful. I mean, if Chris now going to spell my name, full legal name, I have letters in my name that you don't even find on your keyboard. So names are not even possible to use. No, you see, because my second name is Åke, the funny A with a ring on top of it. You don't have that on your keyboard. So therefore, the music industry has identifiers. There are 5 of them. 1 for songwriters, 1 for compositions, 1 for recordings, 1 for musicians, and 1 new identifier, more general, called ISNI. So it's IPI for songwriters, it's ISWC for compositions, ISRCs for recordings, IPNs for performers, and ISNI as a new general identifier. So the first step for creators to make changes in their music business, make sure that you understand the identifiers and make sure that you know everyone's identifier on their song that you are making, both for the composition, the work, the publishing side, and the recording. So that would I say would be the first step for creators to make a huge change in their careers.
Thank you very much. I just want to come back to what you said, that you start with passion and then comes business. Perhaps what is needed is the understanding that there's no war between passion and business. They could actually be parts of this sides of the same coin. And I totally agree with you that so many artists and songwriters clearly lose out on money, or they get delayed because they don't have this business structure really in place, you know.
And I must say that we should, of course, make sure that the creators still have this, you know, the structure should be so they can still focus on what's the most important for them, what comes out of the speakers, the passion, the music, because that's the main thing. But the business side and administration needs to be there, and it is there, whether they like it or not. But we as an industry, if I based on what I do, we want to provide tools for the creators to simplify that administration and business process. It's important, but the main thing should be still to write, produce music, and have fun. That is important to me to say.
Great. So we have identified one problem, at least, or a part of a problem, which is called the handling of data, and you're trying to solve this problem really well, Niclas, with all your session. If we move to Chris, what are your thoughts on the current funding model or the current economy around artists, musicians? Do you see any problem, or?
Yes, it is my very short answer. I'm gonna apologize in advance because I have a strong feeling I'm gonna I'm gonna ruffle a few feathers. So I'm sorry in advance if that's what happens. Personally, I think all of this is just nonsense. Like, we're looking in completely the wrong place. And I'll give you an example. Like the economy of music. Let's just go. The revenue generated by music right now, recorded music around the world, is something like, depending on which report you read, anywhere between $36 billion and $75 billion, depending on who you're asking. It sounds like a lot of money. It's like, yeah, artists, let's go and make some money in that world. The reality is, Starbucks, one coffee company, earns more money than the entire world of music. That's the problem. Like, the problem is really simple. Not enough people want to pay for music, and too many people make music as a product. Like, that's not the artist's fault, that's the industry's fault. And like, if we continue to treat artists as if they're like rats that we somehow have to force down a certain direction to make music on behalf of some label, like, it's just nonsense. Like, when you create a company, when you create a venture, you know, I respectfully kind of disagree with a little bit of what you said, Niclas, in that at MIT, for example, when these amazing makers, inventors, like, become hugely successful, they have no clue about business and they don't care about business, but they're enormously successful. And one of the reasons for that is because they have to be utterly obsessed with making something brilliant, like completely and utterly brilliant. And if it's not brilliant, it's not going to cut through the noise. And so that's their obsession. When you then make something brilliant, the real skill of kind of creating a product is to understand the impact it has in any economy, not just the really tiny, teeny music one, but in any economy. And then you design the product for the economy you've impacted the most. But the challenge that I see, like, constantly, is just that everyone has chosen the market, the really teeny tiny music market, as the place that they want to make a product. When the reality is there's, you know, trillions of dollars, like Linda said, there's trillions of dollars out there in different markets. You can still make music as the way you cut through the noise, but the product you make doesn't have to be music. It could be something completely different. And we've got 300 examples of that now. And it's just blows my mind that people are still fighting over crumbs. It's just like a waste of energy and effort. So yeah, sorry if that's a little bit strong, but to me, the problem isn't really about music at all. The problem is just people are being told where the pot of gold is, and they're just being lied to. It's that straightforward. Sorry,
Okay.
I'll be quiet now.
No, that's good, Chris. I mean, we got the instruction that it should be a good debate in these panels, so that's very good. Thank you very much for.
But then, Chris, for a creator that watched this panel, when you say like that, it's very depressing to hear. So explain more what they should do then. If you have the passion, you want to write songs for the world, and you say like that, you need to explain more. What do you mean then? What should they do?
Yeah, of course, and like from the community that we've grown to support, it's the complete opposite of depressing. It's inspiring. It is like Elon Musk didn't set out to make at first hand, he didn't set out to create an incredible business. He set out to find a way to get to Mars, and like so, it's the same philosophy. It's the startup philosophy. Is a philosophy. It's not a tool. It's a philosophy, and we promote that philosophy for an artist. So as an artist, I'll give you an example who I believe you may have heard of, Our Man in the Field. Essentially created incredible art to capture an audience and to win an audience love and adoration with his art. And that art is stunning, it's amazing. But then, like any good entrepreneur would do, instead of saying, please buy my music, he actually went to his audience and said, what do you actually want? Like, what can I make you that you might actually buy? And you'd be amazed. No one said music. People said, I tell you what, I'll pay to come to your rehearsal. He's like, cool, come to my rehearsal. Pay to come to my rehearsal. And things like that, experiments like that, you do after you've won an audience's heart. And it doesn't need to be millions of people. The only reason you need an audience of millions is because the economics of music are so pathetic. But if you can step out into a slightly different economy, then you only need like 100 people, let's say. There's not a rule, but in Alex's case, it was 100 people, and he formed a viable business, and it then raised venture capital for his business. And it's really inspiring. Yeah, he doesn't care about like streams and downloads. It's just like,
yeah. But now you're talking about an artist. What about if you're a producer or just a songwriter?
I classify all of those as artists. Absolutely, very, very much so. Like, to me, artistry in its raw form is using your own original thought to cause an emotional response.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what tool you use. It could be a computer, it could be a production suite, it could be a guitar to write some songs, it could be lyrics. In our case, it could be a VR setup. It could be a hacker like trying to find new information around the world. Artistry is a provocative way of creating a response from what it is that you make. And
so interesting, because what you're saying, what you're talking about is 100% right. And if I compare it, if I translate it to what I hear from the majority of the artists and creators I talk to, the big frustration is there's 40,000 releases per day to the market. I mean, my God, so many songs. So what should you do to reach through the noise? So the things you're talking about, which is very smart to talk about it from a financial perspective, but it's more marketing ideas, like what should I do to get my music out? And then those ideas are super smart, but if you can link it to money, it's even smarter. So
yeah, the general thing that we've learned at the Rattle, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up the airtime, Linda, thank you for being so patient here. What I ask everyone who we start to support, the very first question I ask them is, do you want to be famous or do you want to be successful? And they're not mutually exclusive, of course they're not. But to be famous is a different game to being successful. And the people and success is defined by their criteria, not by mine. And if they choose to be successful, then we have a philosophy to help that happen. And so marketing in the world of music is a method of becoming famous. It's not a method of becoming successful, because you assume that by being famous, you are successful. But we already know that there's so many examples of that being utter rubbish. So I guess what the point I'm trying to make here is for what you're saying is, it's not about trying to get as many fans as you can. It's about trying to get the ones that give a shit. And that's a completely different exercise to trying to get as many streams and downloads as you can. And it's the way any entrepreneur starts a company.
Yeah,
You need people to give a shit.
Well, what is interesting in both, and I would really like to get your take on it, Linda, because I would say, I mean, you're from both as an artist and composer and as an entrepreneur and also an academic. You have a broad view of all this. What I although feel with your discussion, Niclas and Chris, is that what you come back to is to have a business approach to what you're doing in another way, perhaps, than the many of the musicians and the artists are working today, where again, there might not be a conflict between passion and business. Okay, I'll let you, Linda, give some comments if you want to on this, because
Yeah.
you have.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, Daniel. I have many hats. The drummer, the songwriter, the academic, the founder of a company. But I think what drives me the most is that I'd like to see more opportunity, more diversity, more interesting things coming through, more empowerment closer to the core, like give more power to the creators. And from the research perspective, I started studying the music industry around the year 2000. And at that point, we had 8 majors, and now we're down to 3. And in every panel I've ever been on, every year I say, when do we have one? Is it going to be, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Google or Tesla? I don't know who's going to own this industry, because it seems like power is just getting more and more and more concentrated. And when you have very few actors dictating all the rules of the game, setting like the playing field, that leaves a lot of interesting stuff out, I think. So that's something that I think about a lot. And yeah, I also, another thing is that in recent years, we've seen a lot of platforms allowing consumers to back content creators directly. But to me, there's this ancient idea that artists need to be supported, but in fact, they become dependent on someone else's generosity in these models. Like if we take Patreon or Kickstarter, so that's something like with Tangy Market and other similar solutions to what we're building, we solve this by making music investments accessible to the public. Because here, artists become less dependent on just a few capital-intensive players, and also fans are given the opportunity to actively participate in a market that they themselves can benefit from. So I think sometimes, you know, I've been in the Stockholm School of Economics as a teacher for many years, and I truly believe that we can use the capitalistic mechanisms for a social good, for creating diversity, for creating empowerment. And that's what I'm all about personally.
So, I mean, to come back to the funding question of how music is funded, I mean, what we're seeing now is, of course, always it has been the case that funding is based on future revenue, even though if it's been a record label signing a deal with an artist or a publisher paying advancements to a songwriter to make music. But at least in my opinion, what is happening because of streaming is that it's become much simpler to actually calculate potential future revenues, meaning that there are other ways of funding. Perhaps even could even start to talk about bank loans for artists and music creators in the future. What are your thoughts on this? How has this changed, and has it changed?
Well, yeah, you're the expert here, Daniel, as you know, because what's really particular or special with our times is that there's so much data out there. It's not a problem of big data, but the problem is still how to make sense out of it. We have tons of information, streams and Instagram followers and YouTube views and PR budgets and all these hard facts, but still music, it's art. Anything can happen. We can't predict where it's going to go. We know, and this is an interesting point that Chris brought up, like whose fault is it that the value of music is so low? Sometimes, I mean, people like to blame Spotify, but sometimes I also think that the problem is ours. Like, we have this taste in music. We convert, we go to the most popular, doesn't matter if it's opera or hip hop or pop music. Most people like to listen to the commercially successful songs. Like, it becomes, there's this tipping point, and then everybody wants to hear the same music, the best music. Yeah, this thing with the data, it's interesting because now we need it, we depend on it. Like our company, we use a lot of data to be able to predict future revenue, because that's actually what we're selling in the marketplace. So that's super important, but still, I think these softer values play a major role when it comes to, yeah.
So the question comes, how to convert the software things to the dollar sign, to the, yeah. I'm actually, if it's okay, Chris, I see you want to say something, but leading into this, I mean, we're talking about future funding, and before you, Niclas, because I think you will have some very interesting stuff to say. Chris, do you think copyright itself and the whole system as it is hindering the development of the economy around music? Or is it possible to have these parallel systems? I'm talking about buyouts, for example. We see a new trend of new copyright royalty-free companies doing a lot of money and getting a lot of investment. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good angle. It's the kind of, to me, like, I don't think there's anything. The thing that's wrong isn't so much that the music economy is bad, because it's not, and that people in it are bad, because they're not. It's the fact that artists are told that's the only economy. That's, to me, the heart of the issue.
Oh, okay.
And just so to what you're saying, there's a thought experiment I like to do, which is, if you imagine you're driving in your car 60 miles an hour by yourself, paying attention to the road because you're a good driver, and your phone data isn't working, Spotify is not working, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So you have to listen to the radio, and then all of a sudden on the radio comes on the best song you've ever heard. Like, it's transformed your life. You're like, oh, that's the best thing in the world. You're like, oh, that's so good, driving along. And then it finishes. Like, what do you do next? There's a question.
Yeah.
What do you do next?
Yeah, but personally, I would Shazam it and put it in the playlist on Spotify.
Your phone's not working. Well, at least there's no data.
Okay, then I will check the song afterwards if it's really a transforming thing. To be honest, those songs are very few in my life anyway. But I would really check it out. Look at the list of songs on the radio channel and so on.
Interesting. I tell you what, I think you'd probably do is you'd keep driving. But I tell you what you absolutely would not do. You would not slam your foot on the brake, pull the car to the side of the road, get out of the car, take your phone, call the radio station and say, who do I pay? Right?
Yeah. No.
The second an artist realizes that, people don't pay for music. People pay for the right to perform or reproduce music. That's the product. And so all of the data that we're gathering are giving us predictions on the rights to reproduce or perform music, not music itself. And so if you can essentially think of your product as something else, then you're just in a different economy altogether. And the data which we're collecting right now might help you with your brand, but it doesn't necessarily help you with your business, with your product, sorry. And so, yeah, like they're not, the music economy and all the other economies are not mutually exclusive, but a good, in my opinion, a good founder of a venture, that's the word that we use internally as a venture. A good founder of a venture picks the economy most suited to where they're trying to get to, as opposed to starting by defining the economy and then going, what do I do now? And that's the root of it. That's the problem we're trying to fix.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, and it's we all need new perspectives about. I can agree that music should be valued much more. And all agree about that. The question is how. Niclas, what are your thoughts on? I mean, many people are thinking, especially investors, think that the future funding model is the royalty-free version or the buyout companies that are introduced. What's your thoughts on the funding of music in that way and the future?
I mean, first, when we say funding, I mean, it will always be based on what kind of music. If you do music that people in the world want to hear, and if people likes it, then you're gonna earn money in one way or another. Some will be buyouts. I mean, I think the royalty systems that we have, it will be modified, but it will be there for a very, very long time. I mean, just the fact that we're talking about user-centric, I mean, that there's been so much discussions about user-centric the last couple of years, and that's good, but there's none of the streaming service except from maybe one that say that they can switch to user-centric. So before user-centric even can be used, it's going to take forever. Buyouts will be there, and I think that there are also a very, very intense discussion, especially around publishing societies, about buyouts now. Is it good? Is it bad? And I'm not going to add my personal opinion about it right now. But there are there are people that literally hates it, and there are people that loves it. I say that I think it's brilliant if the songwriter that maybe don't earn so much money from their own songs because they might have a narrow genre that don't have so many listeners, if they can fund their creation by doing buyouts, fine. I think that's brilliant. I mean, I think that's really, really good. So it will always be based on the kind of music you do and if people consume it. I will add another thing. With one of the more modern streaming services, I've been having, if I use that expression, a streaming service that is use very short video clips with music added to it. We had a really interesting discussion about the definition of a song. We are so locked down to that the song is 3.5 minutes long, and it contains an intro, verse, chorus, outro, and boom, it's done. But I think songs, the definition of songs in the future, it might be different. A song can be something that is 30 to 45 seconds long, created by a teenager in the bedroom on the phone in the morning, and it goes viral in the afternoon. That I see coming. And when that happens, we don't see 40,000 releases per day anymore. We're going to see much more than that. And then I come back to my perspective again about data. We can turn in any direction we want. If you should do art between you do your music, or if you should invite people to your rehearsal, or if you sell your rights, whatever you do, if we are going to keep control over the music industry, we need to start identify creators who did it. Because even if it's a 14-year-old in the bedroom in the morning that makes music that goes viral, and that will bring in $2,000, $20,000, who knows how much it will be, that teenager and at least the parents want to have that money. And we will never, ever be able to find that money to that person if we don't know who it is. So by saying that, we need to first say, should money be free or should creators get paid? If they're going to get paid, we need to identify them. That's crucial. And then they can do stuff on the side if they want to. But even if they create art and put it on the online, we need to identify who they are if we're going to be able to pay them. So I still come back to my identification issue because I think it's important. But my personal view is that yes, we will keep royalty systems as we have them today for a very long time moving forward, because there are so set standards for how the industry works. And I've seen the industry from the back, like from the real back office side, how the big companies work, and it's slow. So if it will change, it will change slowly. I'm telling you, it will not change overnight. And people, I both agree with both Chris and Linda, people should maybe have the will to pay more for music, but that's not going to change either. I mean, my partner Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA said a really interesting thing, like, who decided that all music on the planet should cost 99 Swedish kronor per month? That's like, who decided that? And that is an interesting question. Where did it, who decided that the price for music is that? Because that also set the standard for how much money the industry generates. So
yeah, I if I can give my little take on it, I totally agree with you, Niclas, that we will have this system for a long time. We should have it because it is necessary to have copyright as a human right. But that that does not mean that we can create alternative economies and alternative revenue streams around music or around the artist. Or we can't have a future funding panel without mentioning NFTs. Trying to finance and trying to get revenues from a totally different space. And I think Chris has a good point in talking about their art history as something bigger or something else than just the music. It's another kind of product. So I want to introduce blockchain and NFTs and these alternative economies. We still have the copyright system, but perhaps we can have other ways to get revenue. Linda, what are your take on the blockchain and NFTs and these alternative ways of getting money?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are we going to end this panel without mentioning NFT? But first, I just want to pick up on Niclas' point, because I think Björn actually picked that up from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, our whole idea is like, why should Apple or Spotify decide the price of music when we can invite anyone by putting their bid or ask on the market for a particular song? That's much more democratic. So that's what we want to do with that. When it comes to NFTs, I also think that when I look at the graphs on the development of the intangible economy, we're going to consume more and more of what's intangible, what we can hear and smell, and it doesn't have to be physical, because that's also detrimental to Mother Earth. And when we consume a lot of music, it doesn't really hurt as much. So it has that perspective on it too. And sometimes people talk about this as the fourth industrial revolution, this intangible revolution. And we have the creative sector at its core. So I'm not at all surprised that people pay a lot of money for an NFT, which is a meme of a song or something, because it's intangible, but it has this, it tells something about your identity, who you are. You want to own this. And it's the same thing like when my kid buys a skin in Fortnite or something else that's intangible, and that has a value. And in the future, we will value these things much higher. I'm sure of it. We will buy less clothes and less things and put more of our consumer spend on these things. So I think that is super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your? I want to hear your take on the NFT too, Niclas and Chris.
Yeah, from my side, I mean, that is one of the things that we are also from both from the foundation and the collaboration with Whiteball, we see that from an education perspective, that we need to make sure that creators understand the power of that way of earning money and what you can do. And of course also from session, because when you start dealing with this kind of things, it's a lot of things that's equal to the current systems we see. You still need to identify people. So I always come back to that. You need to know who the owner of something is. But I'm a bit compared to what you said, Chris. It's also what's going to be interesting to see is also the crazy amount of content from other areas that might, if we see so much content in music today, what about if every artist also start putting art or other things to the market? NFT might, for a consumer perspective, amazing. You can get anything you want, but as a creator, I think it can be a bit challenging because the amount of content out there is going to be crazy. But I'm really looking forward to it, I must say. I think it's a super exciting thing.
It's kind of tricky, I think. So just to be clear, NFTs are not new. They've been around for decades. A non-fungible token is the technology, and blockchain's been around for decades as well. It's only Bitcoin that's relatively new. So the currency attributed to a blockchain is the new bit. But an NFT is just a way of saying, yep, I did that. It's kind of it. That's all it is. And whatever it's worth in the future, I don't really think anyone can predict right now. And like, no one really knows, because we don't know what people will value in the future. And you know, in a capitalist society, the buyer sets the price. As much as you may think it's the seller, you know, because you go to a supermarket and buy a loaf of bread with a price attached to it. If the buyer doesn't want to buy it, they have to lower their price. So it's always the buyer that defines the price. And we don't have enough buyers in the future to speak to about what NFTs may be worth. But in terms of like how I see them personally, I think they're really fascinating, like psychological units, because we're just talking about human psychology. We're not really talking about technology. And to me, an NFT is the digital equivalent of an autograph, of a signature. And so just like I could get a picture right here of a Van Gogh painting, and I can just print it, and it costs me relatively nothing. It costs me nothing. Let's just say it costs zero. And I've got that piece of art for £0, 0 pennies. But if I want the signature on it, I have to pay for that. And so artists essentially, and what we're doing experiments on in our community at the moment are, what if it becomes the signature? What if it becomes the autograph on a ticket? What if it becomes, you know, the autograph on the first 100 purchases of an album? So then we move into different economies. There's a number of different economies. There's the collector's economy, people who like collect trading cards, and ones with signatures are worth more than ones without. Or we're moving into the kind of appreciation economy, which is you know, where people collect wine because they know that it gets better and people will spend more. That's a different economy to the previous one. Or it's even just plain and simple, you know, the user-generated content community economy. So just like in Fortnite, when you buy a shirt, or in Roblox or whatever else, you know, the NFT says, yes, you did buy it. Well done. No one has a clue, but I do know the obsession with NFTs being an answer is unhealthy. It should be, in my personal opinion, it should be seen as another tool for you to experiment with, and nothing more. If it's seen as a way of funding yourself as an artist, and you become so obsessed in thinking that's the way to fund yourself, psychologically speaking, it's really damaging.
Yeah. And we've seen that, I mean, in the music industry, if we see it from a music industry perspective, there's always trends like this. I mean, for how many years did we go to conferences and the only thing we heard was blockchain? and everyone thought that blockchain is going to save the music industry. And now afterwards, like, blockchains really didn't do anything for music, but we discussed it for 5 years in a row. And I think you're right, Chris. This is not what's going to save the industry. It's a super exciting thing that can change things, but it's not going to be like what turns everything upside down and make everyone start earning money. That is for sure. But it might be a cool thing in addition to what we have already.
Okay. Time is running out. I think Linda had a very good point when she mentioned one of the popular games. I think the music industry needs to find new revenue streams. Look at how and learn from the gaming industry. I don't know why Spotify hasn't introduced Spotify coins and new ways of spending money on the platform. Perhaps that is something we will see in the future. Just to summarize, we need to what else can be monetized around an artist? Take care of your metadata and make it possible for investors to invest in your music. It's just the main takeaways, I would say, from this fantastic panel. I would have loved to talk with you for a whole day. We have to end. So thank you very much, Niclas Molinder from Audley, Chris Howard from the Rattle, and Linda Portnoff from Tangy Market. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I
Thank
learned
you.
a lot. It was fun.